You're listening to Earnestly Speaking, the only weekly podcast that covers friends, foes, and anything that goes. And now, for your badass host, Ernest Owens. And we're back for another episode of Earnestly Speaking with your host, Ernest Owens, myself. So I'm back again. Definitely know you all are probably surprised, like, wow, he is giving us more content. Yes, because I am very rigorous about my podcast schedule. So I have to have a certain number of episodes, even if they're bonus episodes. The bonus episodes do not count in my episodic schedule. So I am very big on honoring my content production. And also, you know, there's lots to talk about and you all love the podcast. We had the second largest week since the season premiere numbers this past week off of that Grammy special edition episode. Not surprised because we definitely had some first time listeners and probably last time listeners. Of course, you all know that some of these Harry Styles stans or trolls, both actually, are definitely feeling some type of way. But hey, it is what it is. More listens, more downloads. You all are listening. The numbers don't lie. So, you know, as it was, as they say. But yes, I'm back again. I finally have had a chance to like get myself back on schedule. I had a little bit of jet lag, which wasn't as bad. It's just that I realized it wasn't really the flight itself. It was just that I realized I went 3 days back to back to back to back. I did sleep. I slept enough to be fully ready for the day, but I just needed to just have a day. So I definitely did that when I came back and just relaxed. And like really all of Tuesday was for that because Monday I came in around 3 o'clock-ish. But then 3 hours later, I was on The Scorpion Show with Kevin Simmons. You all know The Scorpion Show really well. Love Kevin. Kevin is super dope. So it was really great to catch up with him. I try to come on The Scorpion Show at least once a year. And every time I go, it's an event. And his fans, him and Kevin McHale couldn't go because McHale was at work. But Kevin and I just held it down for a good 2 hours and something. And we was talking about the Grammys, my upcoming book, which is now less than 2 weeks away. We were talking about, what else were we talking about? We were talking about everything. It was a good show. And if you haven't watched it, go on YouTube, check it out. The Scorpion Show, it's spelled with a K rather than a C. So it's Skorpion, Scorpion, in that way. And it's I think the K is for the K for Kevin to replace the C. But it's a great platform. It's a great opportunity to just, you know, gain new followers. A lot of the people that listen to this podcast are big, huge fans of The Scorpion Show. I've been knowing Kevin McHale for years. We really hit it off. I made my debut back in 2016 when all the Justin Timberlake stuff was going on. And we had known each other for a while, but you know, there was just like, well, you know, how can I come on the show? And I came on during that time. It was, you know, I gave them like an exclusive and we just hit it off and really became really cool in this business. So ever since then, we've just consistently have kept the morale going and the good vibes going. And it's been great. We've had some great conversations. And over the years, I've come on the show to talk about politics. And the listeners really love my appearance. They say, oh, you're so insightful and intellectual. You have really great conversations. And I'm like, oh, thank you. So no, it was great. And this episode was super dope. And honestly, it was funny. Like I watched some of the old episodes and how we all have grown as people and the experiences we had. Because at that time, when I was on that show, that was 2016. Me and Mr. Johnson had only been dating for 2 years. I come back on this show and I'm like talking about married life and kids and all of that stuff. You have to listen to the episode to know what I think about it. Because everyone's always like, do you want to have kids? I'm like, listen to the episode and find out what I think about that. And we talked about everything else, which was really dope. But it was such a good show. And I was just happy to be in that zone and be around Philly, you know, be back home. I mean, when I was in LA, I was on LA mode, but I missed the sense of just a little bit of the fast pacedness coming to a close. I could never, I don't think, as of right now, I could never live in LA personally. I think LA is great when you have business in LA, when you have fun things to do, like I did. Every time I've gone to LA, I've always had a good time. But living there, I don't know how people do it. My condolences, my hats go off to you, or you must be getting some good money or something. But I just couldn't do it. You're talking to a person with USC masters, but I got my degree during the pandemic, so fortunately I have to go in person classes and whatnot. But woo, if I would have had to do in person and all that, that would have been nuts, because I don't know how you all do it. Like LA is just the traffic alone, the overpopulation. Like even New York and LA, just big, busy cities. And like no one in LA, I don't think really rides trains like that. Everyone drives or tries to drive. It's always traffic. So much traffic that Beyonce came to the Grammys late. Like if Beyonce can't beat LA traffic, I understand why some people get helicopters, celebrities, they get helicopters because they just don't want to deal with it. I guess I get it. That's a rich person's thing, but oh my goodness, it's a lot. But again, when you're there for business, it's a fun excursion. But after that, it's like, So yeah, I'm happy I was home. I missed my husband very much so. I just wanted to be held in bed and just loved and just in peace. Oh, just yes. So I'm just happy. I'm happy I'm home, and I'm happy I'm in Philly. And Philly seems like much wasn't going on since I was going. I mean, clearly everyone, all the journalists, everybody else then went to Arizona, back to the West Coast to get ready for the Super Bowl. My ass is here because y'all know how I feel about the NFL and all that. So I'm not, whatever, birds or whatever, Eagles and all of that. Y'all have fun with that. I'm just going to enjoy my week. I was like, everyone's like, oh, but the game's on Sunday. Okay. And Valentine's Day is on Tuesday. Like, y'all keep making everything a damn holiday. Can we, now when I had my holiday, which was Grammy Sunday, everyone looked at me like, it's just a award show, which is a fucking football game. How about that? And if the Eagles lose, oh well. Yeah, I said it. Ooh, oh well, ooh, a football game. I mean, at least, the Grammys is celebrating art, culture, music, something that we could live without, not something that's going to give people head trauma. And anyway, I digress. But yeah, I am super excited. It was just good to rest, for sure. And the Scorpion show was great. So Valentine's Day is coming up. I'm doing things a little different. I'm really not doing, we're not doing Valentine's Day on Valentine's Day. Our anniversary is on February 13th as a couple. Will be 9 years. It's interesting because I think we were like, well, what do we do special? Whatever. Mr. Johnson's birthday is on February 17th. So we're just like, that's on Friday. So we're just really going to just combine the Valentine's, the anniversary, all that jazz into one cute weekend in New York City. He doesn't know where we're going. We're not telling him where we're going. We're keeping him low, but he's going to be super excited. We're doing an overnight stay at a really nice hotel, and there's going to be a really special evening planned. And so, yeah, this year we're doing a low key. Normally people are like, oh, what about parties and all that? And I'm like, it's not my party. See, I've learned, like me, I got to have a dinner party. I got to have a bunch of friends. He this year wanted to do it like really low key. And I think part of it is because, the book, not this week, but let me get my dates right. So it's not this weekend. It's the following weekend. He's an Aquarius, of course, the 17th. So everything is leading to that date rather than this weekend. This weekend, we're just chilling. I'm going to go to probably a couple of plays. I'm going to go to a play, couple of light events I have scheduled coming up, but nothing too crazy. Just a couple of light stuff because I'm just chilling this week. I say I'm chilling, but y'all know what that means. He's doing something. I am doing something low. But outside of that, the following week, not this weekend, but the next weekend. And I guess no one's really in Valentine's Day mode anyway because everybody's worried about the Eagles. So there's that. So there really is that. But I'll be recording and doing my podcast episode. You all will get another episode that will be dropping on next Monday. So, we're going to keep the schedule going. So you all have plenty to listen to, because I know there's much to talk about and engage with for sure. So, you know how I do over here. I don't play with my content. But yeah, I mean, so as far as everything's been going, my family's coming next week for the parties, the book premiere release the following weekend. They're coming in town. Everybody's coming. My siblings, my parents, everyone's coming. So I'm making time for the events that we're going to have for that. I'm like, oh my goodness, like when I'm going to have time to record my podcast on that next week, because we got brunch now. They want to do that. They want to do this little happy hour. We'll have to make some time to crunch that in. Maybe we'll have to do a late night situation, like the eve before the book premiere. Oh my goodness, exciting. So what I've been doing, book tour, first leg of the book tour is getting finalized. We literally have one more city that I want to lock in. That city, okay, I'm going to tell y'all, Baltimore. Baltimore is the last city I need to lock in for the East Coast leg of the tour. Everybody else has been confirmed, booked, travel, all that stuff has been confirmed. I just need to lock in Baltimore. So I was very stubborn a little bit to say, I mean, if Baltimore doesn't pull out, then it doesn't work out. It's fine, but we do want to include Baltimore in the mix because, I want to hit some cities that are not just the, New York, DC. Like I want to spread it out in a map way. So like what I want to do, if you look at the East Coast map, I don't want to reveal all the cities and all the places because we're going to save some of that, right? But what I was intentional about was I wanted to put it in areas, for one, that people of color, specifically Black people, let me be very, intentional here, Black people could be able to come. And I wanted to be in places that were publicly accessible. People who have disabilities, people who don't need to pay. I'm not charging people to come to any of my events. Now, of course, buy a book, of course, but I wanted places that were accessible in various ways. I was very intentional about this tour. There's no, you must buy a book in order to attend. I mean, that would be nice, but that's not a mandate. There's just certain places you'll find in this world with tours and books, and I know everybody's all into tours right now for various reasons. But I was very intentional on making this be in areas where community can access them. They were accessible on various levels. That was very, very much so intentional. And I wanted them to be accessible financially for people. So people should be able to attend the event, and they don't need to be paying to go into the event, and then they have to buy a book up front. None of those types of things. Like, this is something that people should be able to engage with. And so all of the locations and venues I have agreed to those terms, have made themselves fully accessible in the ways in which I find to be correct and just. And so all of that is happening. But this is the last location I need to confirm. The tour will be starting off heavy in late February and throughout March is the first leg. So it's going to be the end of February and March. That is the tour for the East Coast leg. And then West Coast is going to be picking up in March. And then there may be some other dates we're going to book from there. But as of right now, we're locking the East Coast leg up front. Then, of course, the book will come out and the public will read it. And, we've sent it out to various places. We got a big place in the South in the summer that's getting confirmed. We got some conventions that are already being pre-booked. We had to send copies of the book out. My publicist, the team. It's a lot of moving parts happening. I'm excited. I'm ecstatic. There's been lots of colleges interested. We got some bookings already. We're already going to the West Coast. We're going to the South. A lot of things are happening. A lot of moving parts are happening. So I'm super excited about that, for sure. And really, can't wait for you all to read it. The reviews have been really good. For the people who have read the book, let me add, the people who have actually read the book, thank you for reading the book. It's interesting because there's been some trolls on certain sites People talking about, yeah, and it's funny because like what's great about some of these sites is that they're doing a good job scanning reviews that people are writing to be trolls. And there's things like, oh, I want my money back. Well, the book hasn't the book hasn't been on sale yet, sweetie. What are you saying? Your lies are not good. You're lying. And so they're removing things, which is good because there's a lot of like far right Republicans, crazy stands, different people trying to like trash the book or whatever. Even the podcast. Like if you look, there's some people that recently have been, writing bad reviews and trying to give the podcast a bad rating. But then I look at these subscription numbers go up and I look at these actual like listens go up and it's weird. Now, Apple don't really do anything about reviews. They just let anybody review whatever. But if you're a big fan of the podcast and you've not written a review about the podcast yet, please do. Now is the time when I'm asking for a favor, support. People are always like, well, how can I support you? Well, it's not to say that there isn't, but I'm very mindful and conscientious about when I ask for support. Like I look, because I know everybody has lives. People have things to do. You got jobs, you got all these things. But if you really, really love this podcast and you really support it 100%, if you have not given this podcast a 5-star review and have talked about how much you love the show or even put it out there in that type of stratosphere, in the reviews, on the ratings, now is the time to do that. Now is the time to do it, for sure. Because, some of you all listen to it. And the thing is that it's important in some ways. Ratings do help for different opportunities and sponsorships and things. Fortunately, people know my brand. Most sponsors I've worked with that do advertisements on the podcast, all of them understand who I am, what my brand is, and what I bring to the table. I am somebody who speaks truth to power. I am somebody who's unapologetically fearless, opinionated as fuck. And you know what? And people listen and support it. And folks who get in their little whine because I don't like that their artist won. No, I don't like that Harry Styles won album of the year. But so has every single major publication that talks about music. Nobody likes that Harry Styles won except for Harry Styles fans. Okay, that's just what it is. And maybe the Recording Academy, but really, we know that there is bias at the Recording Academy. The fact that not one black woman has won album of the year in over 24 fucking years is what shows you is wrong with the Recording Academy. That they're out of lockstep and key. And that you guys sound like Harry Styles saying someone like me doesn't win these things. What do you mean by that? What are you talking about? Like you are a cishet white man that's young making pop music. Like I could see if you was like a white rapper, like Eminem, because like Eminem could say, well, someone like me hasn't won that. Yeah, a white rapper has not won. Hell, rap albums barely win in general, right? So like stop. like people just try so hard to other themselves in situations at the expense of black women. And that has been a theme throughout this entire award season, not just at the Grammys, but like if you look at the Oscars, I'm going into a different, I will save some of my thoughts when we get to this, but I just want to say that it's like sometimes it's okay to call a thing. Sometimes it's okay to identify when there's people bullshitting. And I've been dragged by some folks, some of these Styles fans, because I recorded people that were being critical. And then it became the narrative, journalists heckled Harry Styles, Kanye 2.0. That was not fucking me. And the funny part is that I've been very much not talking about it because I wanted to, rest. But a lot of articles have been retracted. A lot of accounts have been deleted for lying. Because if you're in this business, you need to ask me for my thoughts. Update your stories, which many of these publications have to do, or they have to retract them. Because what you're not going to do is go off of social media, report off of tweets and videos and TikToks. Like, that's not journalism. And some of these major people, lawsuits, lawyers, people made some phone calls and was like, look, that ain't how this works. And as a journalist, I spoke to certain journalists directly and said, hey, how you putting my name on this? You don't have a phone? You don't have an email? You don't have a DM? And shout out to the real media outlets and publications that did directly contact me, that did ask for my permission to use that video, to use my tweets. Like, where are the courtesy in this? Even if you use someone's stuff and you do want to run those things, you at least contact them. If it's a regular private citizen or a public person, whatever the case is, you at least give them an offer to comment. Even if you don't think they are, whatever the case is, you do your due diligence. You confirm details. You reach out. My DMs are open. My message box is open. People can DM me, email me, whatever the case is. It is just what it is. I have a publicist. Their contact information, it's not hard to get in contact with me. So when you see that kind of stuff, you can say, hey, this person did this with the intent to harm. It was malicious. They ran a story. It created harm, right? It created problems. Cases can be made for sure. So a lot of people did retract or update or revise some of the really presumptuous tone. And I'm telling you, if you're a journalist, you make a presumptuous tone when it comes to reporting a story. Not just if you want to tweet your opinion. People got this so fucked up. But if you are actually reporting someone's name or something in writing, you got to do your due diligence. You got to contact people if it's not an opinion piece, if it's a piece that's just about whatever. But when you're accusing people of certain things, you better make sure that you're backing your stuff up. And not just literal stuff. But people don't know the business. That's how people get fucked up. Listen, trust me, I have a lawyer that literally looks at every single post I make, look at every tweet or whatever, and let me know if it's within my reign. Look, you can be upset. You can express your First Amendment rights. Are you subjected to harassment? No. Does that lead to some people that go far getting criminal charges? Absolutely. And you dumbasses who do emails or do things on the internet, do you know that it's easy to trace where your account is? And it's easy to access the information and find the address, the email address, that then can trace where the state and location is of the person using it? Oh, you people are stupid. How do you think people send cease and desist letters? Listen, all I'm saying is that there were some accounts that went away. And some accounts that are about to go away. Because you're dealing with someone with a blue check, sweetie. There's a whole different system that allows you to report targeted stuff. It allows you to instantly delete, track, all of that. And people just be out here on the internet doing whatever they want to do, thinking they can say what they want to say. Listen, you can say some things, but some of the stuff people say, I'm like, and I'm no rat, I'm no snitch. But at the same time, just know who you're bothering. Just don't think, oh, he's some young black guy, he's some young black gay guy, oh, he's just whatever. Baby, fuck around and find out. That's what I tell people. Just, look, Harry Styles ain't gonna be able to get you out of jail. Harry Styles ain't gonna be able to pay your legal fees. Harry Styles somewhere enjoying his 2 Grammys that arguably one of them he didn't deserve, but he is not gonna be able to help you behind no bullshit. Tread lightly, be smart, because at the end of the day, we'll leave it there. But anywho, I went to an event recently. I spoke to some kids. I was invited to speak. It was like Black History Month, and I was invited to speak. There's a group that do a lot of work in North Philadelphia to help kids with literacy and reading. And the organization is called Treehouse Books. They're like a nonprofit that is basically invested in educating people about literacy. They're really focused on increasing reading and writing, specifically in Black neighborhoods. And they have free books that the public can get, children's books. You can be a literacy coach. You can be a mentor. You can donate to support the program. But it allows, it's right in the hood, and people can go and get free books if they want to. And so what I did was I donated my book to their place, to Treehouse Books. They have an autographed signed copy of my upcoming book, The Case for Council Culture, that I donated at Treehouse Books. And anybody can go there. Whoever is the lucky person to go to Treehouse Books. And let me be clear. I want a community person to get it. Like if you got money and you can go to Barnes and Noble or you can catch me at a bookstore, do not go there and get that book. Okay? Let it be for community. Let it be for, and I was very intentional about that. Like, let it be for someone in that neighborhood. So I donated a copy of my book. Probably would donate even more books, actually, as we get closer. But I wanted to go there. I talked to these kids. They were so adorable. All of them were like middle school, elementary, middle school mix. And we just talked about journalism and books and all these great things. They were so smart and so fun and well-mannered. It was a good bunch. So I was really just happy about that. And these are the type of experiences and things that really make me excited about what I do, for sure. It's like, those are the moments. These are the cool, fun parts about doing this book tour that really excites me. It keeps me going, to be honest. But yeah, I'm just so, I'm just excited. There's just so many moving parts and things. And, you'd be like, oh, I want a book tour. I want to do a book tour. And you're like, yeah. But then to be able to just see this happen in real life and see the buzz and see the momentum and see people, talking about it and just continuing to, give it good vibes. That's just classic, totally classic. So I'm excited for sure about everything. Yeah, before I get into hot topics, because I do want to talk about the State of the Union, let's talk about the State of the Union. So I watched it. I actually recorded this. You all are going to get it early morning. So you're going to be like, wow, this came early in the morning, because I'm doing this episode late. So I rested up so I can have the energy and the excitement to do it. But yeah, let's talk about this State of the Union. So I watched it. So if you didn't watch it, it's okay. I'll say this. Biden gave a better speech than he did last year. I was really annoyed with his speech last year. He remember the whole fund the police, as if the police has ever been like underfunded, right? It was a very different speech now than then. And I think part of that is because, they lost the House. So like many presidents before him, it was a different kind of conversation. Definitely we had some back and forth with the members. They were a little bit more ratchet than ever. Normally it's like two people shouting, but this group is like literally barking at him while he's giving his speech, like they're in conversation. I'm like, can y'all shut the fuck up? Like, this is a goddamn State of the Union address. Like, have some decorum. Like, the fuck? Like, it's one thing to have a public stadium and people are chanting, whatever, but this is a damn event where you have elected officials, your people, your voters elected you to get your ass in there and do your job. Not for you to sit up here and be bothering the president while he's speaking. If you have all these thoughts, take that shit to the floor when you voted on bills, but don't bring that shit to the damn public. A hot ass mess. And y'all know who I'm talking about. Milford or whatever her name is, more majory, Taylor Green's ass, who's just apparently trying to be allegedly considering or showing interest to potentially be Trump's VP pick, which we'll get into Trump in a minute. But, this VP pick is interesting. I can see him doing that, but if he decides to do this, he alienates his voter base. He's going to lose. It's a McCain, Sarah Palin 2.0, except both of these people are nuts. And it would just be his campaign would not be taken seriously. It would be the same madness, if not 10 times worse. Marjorie Taylor Greene has a history of anti-Semitism, racism, bigotry, internalized sexism, internalized misogyny. She's got a lot of fucked up things with her. Like, all of this document. All the crazy batshit things she said. And, Mike Pence, right? He is definitely Looney Tune in his own way. But Mike Pence was at least respectably presentable in the sense that he just was like a silent hater, but he was just very reserved. This woman, she gonna be upstaging Trump every step she gets. And, I feel like her and Trump's relationship is going to clash because only one diva can be in the room with him. And if both of them are divas are bumping heads. And so this is already a recipe for disaster. You almost wonder if this is if they're even going to make it to that point. But nonetheless, Biden was okay. Biden was better. But what I will say about some of Biden's hypocrisies is that he said it on air, he's a capitalist. but he wants people to pay their fair share. Sir, that's not how it works. You know how capitalism works. Nobody is working within a capitalistic system where everybody makes their fair share. Look at me sounding all Marxist. But no, I'm being real here. Like, how do everyone get paid a fair share in a capitalistic society? Like, the whole basis of capitalism is gross wealth, gross money. It's competitive, exploitative. The competitiveness is what makes it exploitative. American capitalism is built on that. You can't ever be out of a capitalistic society until you provide reparations. So if we're not having a conversation about reparations, then no one can ever get their fair share in this society, because you literally have a country that was built off of the exploitation of Black and brown people, specifically natives, right? The indigenous community, first of all, was completely exploited. Then the people who were then later exploited by both, in some cases, some natives, some indigenous people exploited Black people. Black folks that was taken from Africa to the United States, well, at that time, the Americas, and was exploited for their labor. Enslaved, raped, abused, tortured. And people really don't recognize that. I think slavery, based on how I've read it from some really intense books, is far worse than we really imagine. I think the movies sanitize it, where you think there's some whippings and some beatings and some hard work, but there was some really disgusting, cruel things that was just happening that was beyond any of the things that we can imagine. It was very sadistic. It was very just triggering and fucked up. And so, to me, knowing slavery, knowing that lineage, because we ain't go nowhere. We didn't get on no boats and leave America. We're here. I'm the descendant of slaves, enslaved people. The more preferable term to say enslaved people versus slaves, but you know what I mean, okay? I'm the descendant of enslaved people, and we literally have had no level of economic prosperity or development that can be given to us because our whole family did not benefit off of wealth. There are some people who are much lighter that was able to pass and to navigate and do whatever in the North. But for people like myself, whose family's base is from the South, that wasn't our reality. And a lot of other Black people's reality, whether it was in the North either, right? We know this. They know this. Reparations is the way that, in some cases, you can't have a conversation about equal pay if you're not talking about reparations. There's no way that you can talk about leveling the playing field if you can't even address the ongoing historical and present disenfranchisement of a segment of the population. You cannot have that conversation. It's intellectually dishonest. And I think, people say, well, what about capitalism? What does that have to do with capitalism? Capitalism cannot thrive or work in this country if you're still in a situation where people are disenfranchised. I mean, being forced to partake in capitalism is not the same as choosing to, right? People were forced to, it's the rape of people's resources. They don't consent to that. They're in many ways coerced into it. Black people like me are coerced into capitalism as a means of survival because I don't have any viable options outside of it. I was, again, the descendant of enslaved people who literally created. It's a lot to process. I just want to take that time. I just need to take this moment to reflect. It is a lot to process. But it's also just one of the things where I get so annoyed. And I gotta keep it 100. This is me talking to other Black people right now. So the rest of you listen to this podcast, you can listen, but I don't really want to hear your opinion. This is me talking to Black people for this moment. My people. There are people in our community that are hell-bent on these narratives about generational wealth, these ideas about saving money, which, saving money is fine, but this obsession with finances and the obsession with, trying to act as though these aspects liberate us within this fucked up racist ass system. If Black people are being discriminated on getting access to loans and capital, it doesn't matter how nice they are, how educated they are, how much they do. The system is fucking rigged. And because of that, what I'm saying is that doesn't mean you go blow all your money and don't give a fuck. What it means is give people grace for trying to survive. Because we can't even be in a position to thrive as a collective community because of how institutionally disenfranchised we are. Now, as a Black person who is getting some level of upward mobility, some level, let's be clear, I am not in the 1%. I am not a billionaire, okay? I am not a multi-millionaire, okay? I don't have millions of dollars. I don't. What I recognize is what level of capital and access I do have, it's scarce. And so I don't treat it like this, well, if I got it, you could get it. Get up off your ass. Nah, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. I would rather be critical of other billionaires. Yeah, I'm going to be critical of Beyonce and Jay-Z. Yeah, I'm going to be critical of Rihanna. Yeah, I'm going to be critical of all the rest of them, the LeBrons of the world, because they're fucking billionaires, right? So there's a lot of different things that they could be doing, should be doing, know about, don't know about, that could be discussed. But notice I'm not going to be picking on the everyday man about finances, the everyday woman about finances, a single mother trying to provide for her family in a world where, she's dealing with colorism, body shaming, racial discrimination, sexism, misogyny, all of the things, right? I can't look and to simply say, you need to step your cookies up. You need to change your whole, it doesn't work. And some of the Black people in our community that are out here pushing all this financial literacy shit, all of this financial shaming shit, get a fucking grip, get a new job. Your job wasn't on this earth to shame poor people, to shame Black people that's trying to thrive, well, trying to survive, because thriving can't even exist for all of us. It can't right now. It really cannot with everything. You got people living from paycheck to paycheck. But you got Biden out here talking about he a capitalist, but then at the same time, everybody getting equal pay. That's not how capitalism works. When has it ever worked? When in this country have everybody had access to equal pay opportunities? It doesn't. But then he proposes that he's going to have a junk. He's proposing this interesting bill with this act, and it's I must say it's compelling. But he's talking about, how he wants to have a junk fee act, which he wants to stop junk fees that are being hidden in things. Now that sounds pretty cool. But the thing about the junk fee act and stuff like that is that, you're talking about airline companies, major corporations, all these folks, but you're getting campaign contributions from these corporations. You're getting money from the big banks. You're getting support from these institutions. So how much am I willing to believe, and even Congress, right? Because they're all out here getting perks. How much am I going to believe that you all are actually going to hold these entities accountable? Because I can hear Bank of America having a fainting, hearing a reference about, bank fees overcharged. Because I'm a Bank of America girl. And I will tell you, they try to throw all types of fees on me for dumb shit. And I'm just like, what is this? What is this? What is this? What is this fee? Oh, this is a monthly fee. What a monthly fucking fee for? Oh, well, no, you can waive that. And I'm not talking about overdraft fees. I haven't overdrafted in years. Again, privilege. Ability, that's a gift, that's a blessing, right? To be in a position where I've not had an overdraft fee in years. That's a benefit but to my work, right? But I recognize that that's not everybody's experience. I recognize that that's not everybody's situation. And what I'm saying with bills like this, right? You're proposing this, it sounds sexy, but I just don't know if that's going to ever make it because of just how rigged this very capitalistic country we live in is. Because now what we can see, and I wouldn't be surprised, is if these major corporations, these banks, these travel agencies, all these people that slap these junk ass fees, what are they looking like next week, strategizing as early as tomorrow morning in some headquarters to try to lobby and bribe or influence the votes of any of these Congress people that might consider it? Don't think for 5 seconds they're not sitting there watching this, taking notes and making some phone calls and calling some people and being like, I don't know what your boy Biden, but I heard He is in his 80s. He's the oldest living president, sitting president. If he want to see re-election, he gonna need to, butt in that beak and get this money and shut that up. Don't think for 5 seconds that's not happening. It is. So it was a cute little message. I mean, if it passes and it happens, look, I'll be happy like the next person. I'll be like, wow, Biden, But Biden is, his message was optimistic, his overall speech. There was one thing, though, that also stood out to me beyond just the capitalism remarks and the conversation about money and all that shit, was the Tyre Nichols. Tyre Nichols' family, his parents, the late Tyre Nichols' parents came to the event, and they got a standing ovation by all of the members of Congress. I was looking very carefully to see to myself, like, if half the room stands up for this family, the other half don't, I don't know how I'm going to feel. Looks like that didn't have to happen. No one had to figure out what I was going to feel because everyone stood up. But one of the things that stood out to me about what he was saying about the situation was he was talking about, bad officers, whether need to be held accountable. He was definitely strengthening his rhetoric on that. But he was on this whole tip about, there's a bunch of good officers, vast majority good. I guess he's got to say that, whatever. But the problem to me about that conversation, and also training for mental health and resources, blah, 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 blah. I just don't get it. Where's the money going for police officers to get trained? I thought that the last time y'all justified raising the police budget, body cameras. And we saw how body cameras ain't really body cameraing. Right? They're not doing what they were supposed to do, essentially. I mean, body cameras aren't actually saving lives. If anything, people are still using them as evidence after the killing. I thought the body camera was to hold the officers accountable so they would not do the crime. Not body cameras being used later to help support the witness of a crime. So body cameras don't fool these people. It does not fool them. It does not sway these cops. It doesn't do that. Body cameras are just another decoy from accountability for police, in my opinion. They're Band-Aid. They're not the solution. And I think the reality is that we live in a country that is so codependent on policing that they really will do anything to try to keep them. And they keep prolonging the accountability process because every time something happens, let's just add a body camera. Rather than U-haul the whole situation, like pack it the fuck up and ship it out. No, it's let's do a body camera. Okay, let's do sensitivity training. Like, listen, these officers that killed, Tyre Nichols, it was intentional, right? 5 of them. And there's a story that broke at the New York Times that, and other publications that said that they also, one of the officers or officers involved, shared it to other people right after the killing. Like shared imagery and details about the killing to other people that were not the officers. Look, I understand about abolition, but throw away the key wherever they go. Throw away the key wherever they go. But here we are. This is where we're at. This is the political system that we're dealing with right now. So it's a lot, to process, to take in. Politics is not clean. It's messy. And there's a lot of reasons why. We're seeing that happen right now. One of the things that stood out that people are talking about following is basically Mitt Romney got George Santos together, told him he should not be in the censor. And this is before the State of the Union address, but Mitt Romney told Representative George Santos, this nut, that he should not be in the center. And he was basically eagerly trying to shake the president's hand. But he said that Santos should not be in the center, eagerly trying to shake the president's hand. Romney had told the reporters, quote, he should be in the back row and staying quiet. Like a pimp, okay? Told him, apparently, you don't belong here. They had an intense exchange. George Santos' office has been a mess. I cannot wait for this damn movie. This is juicy. Long Island constituents came to his office earlier on Tuesday, packed, sent him a petition asking him to leave. There's been just so much tea going on. Mitt Romney is telling him he don't belong in the chamber. There's also, conversation saying that he is now expected to face a probe from the House Ethics Committee. This is an investigation that can lead him to getting expelled from Congress. It's a lot going on. And even more so, Romney said that he's a sick puppy who shouldn't be in Congress. Mitt Romney don't care. Mitt Romney didn't say, fuck it, I can't rock with him. So that meant he don't belong there. Okay? Mitt Romney is like, listen, Mitt Romney has his flaws. We ain't gonna act like he don't. But he's tired of this. Mm-mm-mm. Mm-mm-mm. Wow. So, before I get into this, I want to talk about the Dems. The Dems are switching party primary races. And let me back up a little bit. So, in 2024, oh my God, that's next year. That's why everyone's talking about Kamala right now. Kamala is not popular, y'all. I know a lot of you all love you some Kamala. But Kamala is just not it, apparently. I don't know if you all saw that bombshell New York Times profile on her, but it was not good. And a lot of people are saying, she's been getting a lot of criticism in press. And yeah. But the thing is like, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if she signed up, if she knew she was signed up for. That's my thing. My thing is, does she know what she signed up for? She wanted to make history. That's good. She made history. But I'm also sitting here like, okay, while you're trying to make history, are you not recognizing that in many ways you might be tokenized, not given the same expectations or levels of responsibility? Like basically, Joe Biden was a vice president that was given more senior roles and opportunities. She's just not given that. It's just like they got her in the back seat. And then the issues she has taken up, like the border and other matters, has just not been very popular. I just think it's been a really weird vice presidency that she's had thus far. And I don't think it's all her fault. Let me be clear. But it just seems like, Biden is going to probably be like 86 years old when he's done with his second term, if he gets reelected. People want him to. He wants to go, apparently. He wants to stay in it. Which is interesting because, I listened to the alternative speech by the State of the Union by Sarah Huckabee, which is one of the youngest governors within her party. She's 40 years old. They use a young woman like her. They're trying to say the party is getting young and hipper than the Democrats, which isn't necessarily true. But what I will say is that Democrats definitely need to be embracing more of their younger colleagues. They need to be putting more of the younger leaders up front and center. It seems as though Republicans have gotten better at optics. In some ways not. But they know how to lean into identity politics a lot better than the Democratic Party has in some cases. In some cases, not talking about race alone, right? We could talk about black people and how they're racist. But it's been interesting that when we look at the Senate, we was almost close to having a second black senator that's Republican. We only have one, which is Tim Scott. He's the only black, Republican senator. But we don't have. Right now the Democrats have Cory Booker. We have Raphael Warnock. So those are our two. And then of course we had Kamala, who was there and then became VP. So it is the number game is interesting. It's not that much progress when you look at Congress. Not Congress, but when you look at the Senate. But when you look at Congress, definitely there's more black Democrats there. But it's just been interesting. Of course we had a black president and a VP. But it's just something to be said for some of the ways that nuances, right? Like age and different things are not being as front center. That has to change. Otherwise, the Democratic Party just loses its mojo. Ron DeSantis is a serious candidate. And what we're seeing, though, however, is that there is polls that are showing that Trump is not doing as bad as people may have assumed at this point when it comes to Republican voters. Ron DeSantis and him are in certain weird situations where there are situations where Trump is up and there are certain cases where Trump is low. And the gap between him having high in some polls and low in others, they can't explain it. The statistics cannot explain it. But what I will say is that the fact that there is high engagement in certain polls, credible polls amongst Trump supporters and his backing shows that there is some ounce of hope and that there is some justification for why he feels like he should win or run again, because he does seem like he has this cult following. But that's all going to be depending on how Congress acts, right? He's coming back to trying to run for re-election, he's coming back to a new group. And some people may not be too fine. I think a lot of people are trying to move on past Trump, which is why, certain nominations like Kevin McCarthy had to fight hard, because there were people who just still don't like him and only compromised because there was supposed to be deals that were supposed to be made. But I digress. But it's interesting to that point. But I say all this to say that about these Democratic polls. So the polls in 2014, not polls, but the primaries. So the primaries have changed. The Democratic National Committee on this past weekend had approved a major overhaul of the Democratic primary process, which is really supposed to be major in Biden's interest in the way that the party picks nominees. Now, really, a lot of this is benefiting him, because in the past, you got to remember, in 2020, it was a really slow burn before he finally got his mojo. Thank God he had a lot of money to raise at the time. I helped him. But, I was at that time for Bernie Sanders. But anywho, for many, many years, these presidential nomination contests, these primaries, really was focused on the Iowa caucuses and the New Hampshire primary, and that was based on, immense pride for those states, and people thought it was a sense of political identity for these highly engaged residents, which that middle America's heartland shit, right? But people said it needs to be better. Racial diversity is not there. And there was a huge meltdown in Iowa that had lots of delays in results, which made everything even harder. The Democrats basically are supporting a plan that there will be the Democratic presidential primary is going to start in South Carolina, okay, which is the one that made the deal breaker for Biden. Then it's going to be in New Hampshire, then in Nevada, and then in Georgia, and then in Michigan. That's a big damn deal. Look at those. That's all a year from now. So February 3rd will be the primary in South Carolina. That's less than a year from now. South Carolina, the first South Carolina primary is going to be in February. And then New Hampshire and Nevada will be on February 6th. And then Georgia will be on February 13th, and then Michigan will be on February 27th. So all of these are happening in February, these primaries, moving everything up much earlier, I feel like. I felt like it was, I guess it was around that time. Our primaries are in May in Pennsylvania, but these primaries, the dates are changing and everything's going to be moving to February. So in Black History Month, it's going to be a lot of us voting. And I guess in many ways, this really helps Biden, because if Biden has a challenger, I don't know what challenger which challenge he's going to have, but it's looking like this is going to be a big deal. So a lot of these Democrats are adamant that the Democratic committee really goes in the direction of what Biden's preferences are, which it looks like that is the case. Racially diverse states that propel Biden and give him the benefit will be benefiting him again. But you know what? I think this is a good idea for any candidate that might try to challenge Biden. The question is still up, will someone challenge Biden? If they do, you better start talking to Black people like yesterday. Engaging Black voters. The work needs to be done, because you're going to need to win those. If you can't survive those primaries, by the end of the primary cycle, you're toast. Because it's really going to be Black and brown voters in these chocolate cities that's going to make the difference in these races. There's too much talk about, oh my goodness, what about this? But we always bite our nails at Georgia. The days of biting our nails for Florida is just pretty much obsolete right now. Florida has just become Florida. Even Texas. Every time I think Texas is going to turn around, it just doesn't. But there's other states like Georgia where we're just, Georgia is becoming more and more blue, but not blue enough, right? They don't have the governor. Like Pennsylvania has gotten really blue in spite of some of the Republicans that are doing what they're doing. We're starting to see some progress. Like it's really working here. But other than that, there needs to be a fundamental change for sure. So into local politics, because this is big in my opinion. The campaign finance reports have come out. A lot of you all have been hitting me up asking me like, yo, what you think about the campaign finance reports, Ernest? What you think? Yada, yada, yada. Well, I had to look at the data, y'all. I wanted to read it and analyze it. I needed to get familiar with this information because the information is juicy. It's some stuff I need to consider. And some tea across the board. And y'all know me. I'm going to keep it 100 on all of the fronts when it comes to this race, because all these candidates need to be, to a larger level held accountable. And there's some interesting data that shows some stuff. So here's some of the major, takeaways and things that I got out of the race, in my opinion. Definitely some stuff that I want to look at that gives me give me some context and some stuff. So, here's some of the things that I would put on there or whatever. So for starters, Alan Dom has, cash on hand. He's number one as the mayoral candidate. He has a lot of money. He has $5 million cash on hand. He has spent $1 million, and he's got the most money in the race. The good thing about him is he has the most money in the race by a $4 million landslide. No one can take that away from him. And even better, he's more clever the fact that, he waited until December 30th, which is the final day of the 2022 campaign finance report deadline, to loan himself a $5 million check, which is the money that he took out. So a lot of this money is his money, which prevented, his opponents from accessing increased donation limits last year, which basically means that stopped them from being able to access more resources, yada, 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 yada. But the thing about it is that his biggest contributor of his campaign, and even the money that he has raised outside of himself is lower than that of Gim and Reinhardt, which is very telling. Within his own right. So, for me, I think that it's something to be said about the fact that he's got all this money, but a lot of this money, his race is his money, which again, in my opinion, I think, okay, yeah, he got a lot of money, but it's like, if that's you spending your money, that doesn't necessarily mean it translates to voters and people engaged in you. Like, I feel like it's something to be said. Like, when I look at Fetterman's race, when he ran in the primary, he had a lot of individual donors. That matters, because that just shows how many people are actually invested in your race. When you have a lot of single individual donors, one could argue that counts as a base. Like, you got some local base money that's going to support you, some people on the ground that's almost committed to supporting your candidacy in a way that is fiscal. You got people to come out and spend money for your race. That says something. It means something to that degree. I think if your money is coming from you, you don't really have an assessment on how popular you are. This is not shade, but this is a textbook example. I think of Nina Ahmad. Like, Nina Ahmad had a lot of money in her races. And she's running now for city council at large. We'll get to that later. But she's got a lot of money in her race. And in spite of having all of that money didn't translate into a lot of endorsements or a lot of outside support that was required for her to win. So when she lost, people were like, well, she had a lot of money. I'm like, but it does matter where your money comes from. It does matter where you get your money, because that does not necessarily translate into success for you. So that's my thoughts on him. He's the highest. Number two, the second highest is Helen Gim with cash on hand. She has $1,031,000. Now, let's be clear. Outside of her, Rebecca Reinhardt has the $1 million $26,000 amount, which is whatever. So that's very telling. The cash spent, so let me back up real quick. So you heard this correctly. Helen has $1,031,000. Rebecca Reinhardt has, $1,026,000. So there is a difference in the amount by only $5,000. So I just wanted to just put that for context, because there is a small gap. So Helen Gim spent $287,000. She received $112,000 from the American Federation of Teachers. She received some money from the Teamsters. She's got some good money going, and that's a big deal. Also, given that she also has the second highest funded campaign, and it's not being funded by her personal finances, that's pretty big to me. I think that she really has, solidified herself as a really candidate to watch in this race financially. Some of the cons, though, is that a lot of the big bucks she raised, including that 6 figures from the American Federation of Teachers, AFT is what they call the group. That money can't be used for her current election campaign. So she received this money last year, and this is before she declared. And so the financial rules, the usual city contribution limit is $12,600, meaning she cannot use the rest of that money, that pre-declaring campaign money, for her current battleground activity. She can't use it that way, because that amount, she can't use that money for that. So she can use it for exploratory purposes, which is already kind of expired. So, she's got money, but she has to, in some cases, she has to put that money in a separate fund. Not all that money can be used as a war chest. Now, Alan Dom, that's what's interesting about him, is that all his money can be technically used as a war chest. So then, one could be, more could be said about a lot of this. You know what I'm saying? A lot of things can be said about this next candidate. Rebecca, she's number 3. Rebecca Reinhardt's number 3. Again, she has $1,026,000. She spent $569,400. That's a lot of damn money. She spent a lot of money. But here's the thing. A remarkable 62% of the donations listed came from Philadelphia. The highest percentage among all candidates. She has only $5,000 less than the second highest funded campaign, which I think that it is good. She can feel good about her, her campaign. I think it's really good. Now, here's the only problem, though, about her finances from my end, because all of these candidates that I'm talking about has pros and cons. And let me be very clear. All 7 of the candidates I'm naming are 7 out of the 11. I did not include the other bottom 4. So I did not include Armin Brown. I did not include Mike Stack. I did not include James DeLeon. And I did not include Warren Bloom. They either had not reported because they announced too late, or their money was so low that it just really was irrelevant. Just saying. They didn't have the money. So here's my concern about her finances, Rebecca's. So she got a really big endorsement from former Mayor John Street, which was a big deal. Like, oh my God, she's got the first major big endorsement from a former mayor. Like, no other candidate has been backed by another former mayor. Like, Nutter hasn't announced yet if he is going to. Jim Kenney hasn't. He probably shouldn't. Who else is alive? Ed Rendell be endorsing everybody. But we don't know yet when it comes to mayor, right? So we don't know who these other people are backing, but she did. Only thing is that it comes out her report that John Street received a $22,000 payment from her campaign for consulting. Now, let's be clear. John Street did work. John Street should get paid. That's what the campaign is saying. They're saying, look, was he not supposed to be being paid for his consulting services? Absolutely. The only thing is that it looks like, well, if you are consulting, you getting paid for your work. Wouldn't that mean that if you want to work and consult on a president's campaign, that that shows a sign of support? I mean, one could say it's quid pro quo. I don't want to go that far, but it appears to be one hand rub the other. And it shows up in the campaign finance report. So it kind of dampened the momentum that endorsement would have made. Like, if I'm going to get endorsed by somebody like a past mayor, I want that endorsement to feel as though this person arrived at this decision without any persuasion. And if a person's getting paid to consult on your campaign, it's almost as if the mindset was. Now, see, I don't know. If I was a real G working on that campaign, I would have done it after the fact. Like, if there was a deal made, I'm just speculatory now. This is all speculation. I've not spoken to either the candidate or them. I'm just talking. This is my opinion. But if I was in their shoes, I would have been like, okay, John Street, look, do you want to endorse me? You like me? Cool. Like, I know he's a professor at Temple. Apparently, he's brought her in. He's said positive things about her before, have called her the next mayor before. So there was already a good relationship between them. But if I was on that camp, I was on that team, I would say, listen, if you want to endorse me, do that. If you want to then later on consult and add support to my campaign, do that after. Do that after the endorsement. To do it before the endorsement makes the appearance be biased and it looks like it's shaped. So I don't think that was a good move on their part. But every candidate is doing it. I mean, at least she's not the Union League. At least she's not taking ass from, Michelle Obama in weird ways. But, I digress. Just a dumb move on their part. So number 4, Maria Quinones Sanchez. Let me get that right. Cash on hand, $501,000. Cash spent, $67,000. So she did her thing, and I think that's a good look for her. I think that's a good look for her. She did her thing. A lot of people had early questions about her ability to fundraise. That's been answered. She can raise money. But what I will say, and this is my con about her, which is very, very minor compared to a lot of people, the fact that she is spending less than her major opponents in the race, which is good that she got money, but she's been spending less, might explain why we just have not seen enough Maria material. I just feel like I haven't seen a lot of Maria material as far as campaign stuff goes. Like, I've seen some Rebecca Reinhardt stuff out there, websites, social media has been heavy, but no Maria content on my timeline. I do follow her on social, but I've just not seen the campaign materials. Like, what are you doing? Like, Rebecca's out here spending $569,000, which is more than how much you have on cash on hand. And she's even spending more than what Helen is spending. I mean, Rebecca's spending some money. So it's interesting. I'm even looking at some of these other candidates I'm about to get to. So number 5 is Jeff Brown. Yes, Maria Quinones Sanchez has more money cash on hand than Jeff Brown does right now. Shocker, but not too much. Jeff Brown has $469,000. That's how much he has. Cash spent, though, he spent $617,000, which is the second amount of money compared to Alan Dom, who spent $1 million. Both of them are out here buying these ads. Jeff Brown's ads have been even more weird, have been awkward, and some of that has been weird, and that's why some of the drama's been going on. But we got to get into what that needs to be. Now, here's the only issue I will say. He has the lowest amount of money coming from Philadelphia. 35% of his donations listed in his report comes from Philly, which is the lowest percentage of all candidates. Very telling in so many different ways. He needs to figure out what he's going to do with his money, reprioritize. His team needs to figure it out, but he needs to get his act together. With as far as Sherelle goes, she's at number 6. So Jeff Brown's at number 5. We're at number 6. So we wait for number 7. Y'all wait for number 7. But I wanted to break this down because people have been asking about the financial report. I've read it. I just want to have some thoughts. So Sherelle Parker, has got $460,000 cash in hand, and she spent $300,000. Now let's back up to Jeff Brown. Jeff Brown got $469,000. She got $460,000. So you start seeing that some of these numbers are a little close. Like Jeff and her are only split by like $9,000 cash on hand, but she spent less than him. She's got, now to her credit, she has 68.2 percent of donations that are coming from the report in Philadelphia. So she has 68.2% of her money is coming from Philadelphia. That means most of the local money, the percentage amount, the local percentage amount is there. Now, the most amount of money is from Rebecca. Rebecca has the most amount of local money. She has the largest percentage amount of donations from her share at 68.2. But the largest amount of money, period, is different. So percentage and amount. So she has a larger percentage from her share than any other candidate. But Rebecca, in gross net totality of money, has the largest local amount of money. But Sherelle has a large percentage amount of her money coming from local. So that's her pro. Now, the issue is that with so much money coming from individual donors, which is basically the campaign finance filings only include contributions from donors who give more than $50 in a year, right? Last year, the calendar year. We won't know if this is sustainable. You know what I'm saying? Her campaign has been hosting large large chicken and fish fry events to raise money for her campaign. It'll be interesting to see how many plates her camp will sell. Like, I mean, how's she gonna be able to fundraise? I'm not seeing a lot of big donations from major groups here in her race. It seems like she's getting a lot of this, a couple of individual donors here and there. A lot of this is just raising money from individual groups. It's going to be time will tell. So we got to figure out what's happening there, for sure, in my opinion. Now, at number 7, at the bottom of the top 7, Derek Green has $440,000 cash on hand. He spent $250,000, which is reasonable. He has a lot of backings from donors across various industries. He's got unions, law firms, Comcast Universal, healthcare developers. That's just, pushing him, to a certain degree. But only 41% of his itemized contributions have come from the city, making him have the second lowest local percentage amount of all candidates. It is odd to me that's happening, given that he is this mild-mannered city council person. You would think he would have more support from the city. I just felt like he's a citywide person. He's been around with all these relationships. It just seemed a little odd that that's not happening. Just weird. But that's the numbers, So as far as other candidates go, I think some of these candidates, if I was a betting man, are looking to see big PACs and groups drop money in their race. And a lot of those big groups are not going to drop money until these candidates get on the ballot. So I feel like, there was talk about Ahmed Brown having some outside big money come from developers in New York and all these places. If I was a betting man, I would assume that Ahmed's low amount is like around $3,000. He don't really have any money in his race. His financial campaign report was low. But also, he would argue that, and he has said that that's because he finally announced he's running. But I would call bullshit on that because, in my opinion, because if you had plans on running, right, all these people have plans on running. A lot of these people got money that's old money. It's not even like some of this money they have up until December 31st isn't money they just got in a whirlwind. A lot of this money was been building and been planning. So, I mean, obviously, I don't know for a fact, but if I was in his position with that amount that low, you must be planning on some big drop of money coming in. And it looks like he is, right? But he has to probably go on the ballot in March and solidify it, because other than that, it's not going to come through. Ballot petitions go out apparently on Valentine's Day, I heard, or close to Valentine's Day. Next week, they start to go out. So be prepared. Next week, you're going to start getting bugged by ward leaders and committee people asking you to get their can to sign their petitions. Don't be surprised. You heard it here first. Something else that you've probably been hearing, and it's true. A lot of people want to know what's going on, but I have some thoughts. Some big thoughts, and I do want to talk about this. There is a collective of ward leaders, Black ward leaders, that have spoken ever since Helen Gim's flip-flop, and it's a big deal. It's a big deal. So this came out. A lot of stuff has come out, but this was a big one that came out. I want to make sure I have the numbers correct. So the heat keeps coming for Helen Gim, basically. That's what the Inquirer said. That's what people are saying. People are really going after her based on after she denounced the Union League last week and then attended that cocktail party there on Monday that had developers that could help fund her bid for mayor. The United Democratic World Leaders of Color on Thursday had announced they had great disappointment in Gim, calling her a hypocrite. It's been a lot said. Janie Blackwell had said, quote, her actions are a slap in the face of true democracy, which was the group said this in a statement, but they're being led by City Council member Janie Blackwell. She said, quote, Black and brown voters should assume they are unable to trust Helen Gim, who has shown she has no conscience to do what is right versus what is political convenient. Bob Brady, which is even more messy, he is the Democratic City Committee chair. He said the letter tweeted by the Black world leaders was also read at the party's policy committee meeting on Tuesday, while the decision on whether to endorse a mayoral candidate was considered. So that was interesting. Brady had also said he does not control a Twitter account that in his name that liked anything that they tweeted. He says he does not twit, he told Clout, which is it's to be tweet, not twit. But it just shows you that he's not on Twitter like that. It's getting real for Helen. This is not blown over. I did the special edition last week talking about this in depth, so you can go back and listen to my thoughts about what went down with Helen, all the details. It's a special edition episode. Please listen to last week's episode for more in-depth coverage. But what I will say about it, just from this point of view, she's been pushing through. She's been going to political events. She's been trying to just push on by and push through. It's just not working. It's just what she's done has left a very big stain on her credibility. A lot of people just don't trust her, don't believe her, just find her to be completely wishy-washy. And she hasn't been able to shake it off. And it's still to this day the $1 million question of why did you do it? Why? I just want to know why. And it just can't be, I made a mistake. It's like, no. Why did you really do it? I feel like anybody who interviews her about this needs to straight up ask her, why did you do it? Don't just say, I just made a careless mistake. Oh, I go to this event every year. Bullshit. You have 2 fucking Ivy League degrees. You are literally in the most intellectual spaces. You've taught, you've educated, you've helped create a charter school that you probably don't be telling people about. You've done a lot in education space. There is no way that you did not consider optics. There must have been a reason why you decided to go. And you was willing to forfeit community support and trust in you for doing it, which is a red flag to me. But that's your choice. So I want to get into City Council at Large endorsements because I want to get the order. The City Council at Large races are shaping up, y'all. They are shaping up. Right now, we're starting to get to a point where we're starting to see who the front runner is going to be. The Democratic City Committee did something unprecedented. Normally, there's 5 Democrats that will win the seat, will win an at-large seat in the primaries. They'll get elected, they'll get the nomination, and they'll pretty much win the general. So there's 5. Traditionally, the party endorses 5 candidates. This year, you had 3 of them that were longtime incumbents leave. Then you had replacements for them. So, well, not all of them. Let me be clear. The replacements were, okay, first of all, let's say who stayed. Isaiah Thomas, city councilman at large, Isaiah Thomas stayed. City council person, Catherine Gilmore Richardson stayed. Those are incumbents. They stayed, right? Then replacing Derek Green with Sharon Vaughn, who isn't running for re-election. She's going to be done after this. She's going to get her pension. She's going to be straight. And we have Jimmy Heraty, who also replaced the Alan Dom seat, per se, one would argue. And he's a white guy, and he, is running for re-election. He's going to stay in this. The 5th slot was occupied by Helen Gim. Helen Gim left, and no one filled her seat, her vacancy. So with Sharon Vaughn leaving and only Jimmy Heraty, Catherine Gilmore Richardson, and Isaiah Thomas left, that's 3 incumbents that are staying in the race and going to run again. The Democratic City Committee decided that they was going to endorse 4 candidates, okay? Which was the 3 I just named, and then a shocker. Rue Landau got that 4th nomination. Rue Landau is an openly lesbian woman who had a strong background in civil rights law and practices. She served as the executive director on the Philadelphia Commission on Human Relations, which, that's a pretty big damn deal. She's a lawyer by trade. She's now doing her own legal stuff after she left that position for several years of serving. And now she's running for city council at large. And she can stand as the first openly gay candidate to win. If she wins, she'll be the first. Now, there has been gay city council people like John C. Anderson, but he didn't come out at his time. He was not an openly gay candidate when he first ran for city council at large. Now, he's a mentor to people like Mayor Nutter and other people knew, but at the time in which he got elected, he was not. So these kind of details matter. She'll be making history. She's also apparently the second openly gay candidate to get endorsed by the Democratic City Committee. The first time it happened was a couple years back when Sherry Cohen was running for city council at large. It appears that Sherry Cohen might be running again, I think for a 4th time. She's become such a perennial candidate in the race. One could say, oh my God, Sherry, what are you doing? But then again, it's like she just has her own momentum. So this is something that she's really passionate about doing. One could argue she might be spoiling the vote if she runs as an independent compared to running as a Democrat. Only time will tell. But it's interesting that the Democratic Party has already made the endorsement so early. They made endorsements for city controller. They did not endorse Tracy Gordon for register of wills, which was very messy, given the fact that, she's kind of gotten popular off of this decision, but, only time will tell. But there was a lot of interesting decisions that was being made this time around these endorsements because it was super early. It was almost like they wanted to get ahead of it and set the narrative. So, if there was no 5, right, they only endorsed 4. And then they recommended 3 people to consider for the 5th, but the party will not, embrace them in that way. They will not put out flyers for them. But they did say 3 recommendations basically for that 5th slot, depending on your vibe. It can be for Erica Almiron, who is running again. This is her 2nd time running for city council at large. The second person they considered was Nina Ahmad, who we talked about earlier. And then the 3rd person they considered was Aaron Satsamore, who also ran for city council before. So, there's some interesting candidates running again for re-election. It should be interesting to see it. At large is a very competitive race, so there's going to be a lot of heat. But, getting that Democratic endorsement is no joke. It's nothing to play with because last cycle, all 5 of the people who was endorsed all were elected. So there is something about that Democratic endorsement when you go into neighborhoods and the old voters, old seasonal professionals and folks, they go to the polls. They need those materials to vote. They need that information to help them guide. And so if you're not on that ballot, it's going to be really hard to see success, because those are the things that make the big difference, in my opinion, between those who win and those who lose. That's just what it is. So saddle up, because now that those endorsements have been made, there's going to be a lot of people that's going to be in their feelings about who got recommended, who didn't. And I saw some of it play on my DMs. I was like, ooh, this is shade thrown, but this is how they really felt. So I guess we'll have to wait and see. So in other news, there was a big historic victory that took place like literally this week. And I don't want people to sleep on it. A judge has declared that Pennsylvania's school funding system is unconstitutional. That's a big damn deal. Basically, it was found that students who need the most have the least, because the state, the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, shortchanges low wealth communities. That's a big damn deal. And this came out, interesting enough, during the time where the lawsuit got dropped. Interesting enough, during the special election date, which was on Tuesday, was a special election where basically the Democrats won. So now they officially have the majority. Well, technically, because we'll see what Mark Rossi does. But they officially had the majority, or something like that. Like there's a tie now, because Rossi needs to be, he needs to decide whether he's going to stay or not. So we got to figure out what's going to happen with this House vote situation. If Mark Rossi is still going to be playing middleman. But right now, they officially do have the majority technically when it comes to actual registered voters. Members of Congress, they technically have Democrats, even though Rossi has not changed his position, which we talked all about this a couple episodes ago, but we're still waiting to see where that goes. But let me just say that that's a big ass deal for the school funding system, which means that now the state they're going to be having to give more money to Philadelphia, because Philadelphia has a lot of low wealth, economic, struggling schools, that the funding system been fucked up, and now it's unconstitutional. Okay. A judge declared it, so they can't even play. Our schools have been underfunded in Pennsylvania. These protests, all of the things, this was something that should have been done. This is a big damn deal. So a judge declaring that is giving Plessy versus Ferguson, is giving Brown versus the Board of Education, is going to be a problem. And Republicans can find themselves in serious trouble. Because if this goes up to the federal level, we're talking a Supreme Court case. Woo! But it's time to cough up them coins for public schools and for these kids, because Black kids in these schools have been struggling with the resources. It's just disgusting how fucked up the funding system has been. And I'm happy that this is good work. Helen Gim could be dancing right now, celebrating this victory. And she probably is to a certain extent, but right now, she's just not what's in, because people don't know where her intentions are and her trust. So there's that. Now, I wanted to, talk a little bit about this. I've been hearing, and people been asking about it. And people keep asking me, why have you talked about the eggs going high? Well, because I really don't buy eggs. But I do think there's something to be said about this recession situation. So I've heard some interesting things from business leaders and different people about the recession. People are saying that they believe that this recession situation has become a made up, over the top hoax. Not hoax, but it's just been like an over exaggerated freak panic button moment with leaders. Like everyone's laying off people. Everyone's saying this recession. It's almost felt like it's fake. I'm not saying jinx, let there be a recession to prove everybody wrong, but it has just not really been recessioning. Like everybody's saying recession's coming, all this preeminent layoffs and money expenses, but all the things are going up in price, but I'm just not seeing this recession. I feel like the recession itself hasn't really happened. It feels like the reaction to the recession has been more damaging than whatever this recession is that is being predicted. It just is really weird. Is it just me? I'm just saying. Sometimes I try not to be that person, but I just keep hearing about this recession. Everybody's panicking based on it. And I'm just wondering if the business community have gotten together and said, let's just create a fucked up situation so we can justify cuts that we want to make anyway. So the truth of the matter is I'm going to tell you what I heard, right? This is an interesting theory. I don't know if it's true, but it's a theory. It could be proven wrong, be proven right. But here's what I'm hearing. Capitalism has reared its ugly head. Forever or again? Both. So here's what I've heard from some business people in some higher seats. That when everyone went to work and remote work took over, a lot of companies were stuck with buildings. They were stuck with all this equipment. They were stuck with certain things because the whole return back to work thing hasn't been going according to plan. A lot of people are like, look, I want to work from home, and salary changes, the culturalness of it. Like, everybody's working like I work. Like, I work from home and I have my own personal office. I got a co-working space, all that. So I've always been like this. I've always been like a hybrid, type of person. But also because I'm entrepreneurial. So any entrepreneur that is self-made like I am and others, this is not new to us. However, for these companies, they're like, wait, we bought all these big ass buildings. Your ass need to get there. People don't want to go, or people want to have special days off and they're taking vacations. Like, the pandemic has changed the way woke and work culture has operated. And so as a result of that, they're like, okay, we need to start making some massive cuts then. So initially the plan was, okay, let's cut some of these buildings. Let's downsize. Okay, downsize. People downsized. But that still wasn't hitting certain marks. And then some people had an idea and said, well, wait a minute. Why are we paying Americans? And I'm not saying that this in a good way. I'm just telling you, I'm laying the scene. Why are we paying Americans these really nice, salaries with benefits to work from home when we can outsource this job in India and pay these people pennies on the dollar? So a lot of these companies that was giving great livable wages and salaries and benefits to people that was working from home, their mindset is, scratch that. We can get the same type of service for way less in a different country. Now, granted, they're going to be taking some hits to quality, right? There's going to be quality control, but dirty, greedy ass capitalists will take some hits to quality control in the name of trying to, make more money. So in the next several months to a year, don't be surprised if a lot of your customer service is coming from a foreign country that, is not sounding anything like what we sound like. Don't be surprised, because these companies are going back to their old dirty ways. And in many ways, they're expanding their pie. They're changing their model, because the pandemic has made a lot of these jobs at home and hybrid in a way that you start to realize this person never needs to be in office to begin with. But now the question is becoming, not only do you not need to be in office, they don't have to be in this country, and I got to pay all this money for their salaries and wages if I'm not going to have this physical in-person interaction. So I think that some of this stuff that's going on with inflation and all this crap is them explaining this situation, raising the crisis, creating panic in the economy, keeping this narrative going. But the truth of the matter is, I think that some of this is getting a little excessive. Kind of reminds me of the pandemic with the PPE loans, when everybody was acting like they need these loans for their small businesses and people, and then you find out that a lot of this money wasn't even going to that program, or those programs. But I digress. So speaking about recessions and things, these Beyonce tickets, I don't know. I think the Beyonce concert is going to be great. I don't doubt that. But I'm too old. Not too old to go to a concert. Clearly not. But I'm just too old to play these damn ring around the rosy games. And I must say, just to say, that seeing the way that some of these people are reacting and being organized and prioritizing getting Beyonce tickets and, doing all these little things, just make sure that when your friends have shit going on, that you showing up and doing what you need to do. Because I done seen a lot of people out here, and I'm not talking about myself to say personally, but I've seen some interesting people in certain places. The way that they're going up for Beyonce tickets, it's no slight to Beyonce. She is the greatest living entertainer of our current era, right? No shade to her. But it's just to see when you see people say things like, I don't have any money. I don't have this. I can't do that. I can't do this. I can't do that. But then somehow they magically will prioritize a budget to do something for a woman who's a billionaire who doesn't know who they are, it just begins to make you think. Makes you start to go, And so people will prioritize things above certain things. And I'm just noticing that with some folks where it's like, I'm having some conversations, not with any of my friends, but just other friends have said this. There's a guy I know, he's a musician, and this was a conversation I had when I was in Hollywood in LA. But he was talking about how, like, he's an up-and-coming artist. He does these shows in LA, nightclubs and things. He's like, he tries to tell his friends, hey, can they go to his musical showcase to support his records and stuff? And he says he goes, they can't come, or there's an excuse, or there's whatever the case is. They work in multiple jobs, they can't afford it. But they said they felt some type of way when it was announced that, Beyonce had the tour, and these people came around being like, yeah, I got my coins saved up. And he's like, yo, you got coins saved up, you got money saved up, you got all this saved up, excuse me? Like, you mean to tell me that you can budget to go to Beyonce concert, but you can't support me and my music, That kind of stuff. And so I'm very mindful as a friend that I am standing for my friends more than any fucking celebrity. I love Rihanna, enjoy Taylor Swift, but at the end of the day, my friends and their successes and their individual wins and goals are always going to be front center for me. Like, I feel like we are in such a society where we give so much praise and acknowledgement to celebrities every fucking day, but we don't necessarily give it to our friends every day or our close loved ones every day and things. So some of you all listen to this podcast, think about, as you listen to this podcast, have you pre-ordered my book? Have you pre-ordered my audiobook? Have you told a friend? Did you make sure that happened? Are you going to be at Barnes & Nobles or outside on Rittenhouse making sure at 9 a.m. when that store open that you get your physical copy so I can sign that copy? Are you going to come to the book tour? Are you going to show up on some of these dates, y'all? I'm just saying. Don't come to me talking about Beyonce Made You Broke when my book only costs $26.99. Don't come to me talking to me about, you got to get your budget. I don't give a fuck. Because I'm looking at y'all shit like the IRS. I feel like it's tax season in this motherfucker. I'm just saying, I'm looking at some of the stuff that's being said. I'm saying, interesting. Oh, you got Club Renaissance money. Oh, you got $900 sitting around for Club Renaissance. Oh, you told Beyonce to take all your fucking money, but I couldn't get your $26, but she can get your $1,200. Oh, okay. I see it. Creators see it. Your friends see it. Your family see it. I'm just saying. Get your black boy joy on. Get your black girl magic on. Get all that on, okay? But just be very mindful of how you're standing out. When my friends have projects and releases and shit dropping, I go ham. I go hard. Because that's what you're supposed to do. And also because that's what I want to do. But if you got people in your circle, thank God I don't have any in mind, because anybody who was has definitely been cut off. Facts. I'm not friends with certain somebody. I ain't gonna name her name, but I ain't friends with certain somebody because of that. Also, some of these phony ass people that be having phony ass weddings. Just be very observant of how you come across and how you talk about yourself, your money, and your support of certain people, and just double check and circle back on if you're showing up for your friends in that type of way. I will say it's interesting to me because there's a person, a couple now actually, but like there was a couple that my friends and me and Mr. Johnson used to hang out with, and thought they were decent. And I didn't think one of them I really really liked. The other one, yeah. Anyway, they, in the beginning was very frugal. I'm being classy. Frugal is the right way to say it. And it was so frugal to the point that it would be hard to know if I should invite them to a birthday dinner, invite them to a mixer, because they were very much frugal. I'm being very classy when I say this, because I really want to say other things, but y'all gonna say, oh, you snob, you classist bitch. Look, I'm not gonna do it, because that's what y'all gonna say about me. But they were very frugal. And no matter how much I tried to accommodate and adjust, it would just always be this the thing. And as time began to pass, I started to say, it's not that they're frugal. They just don't prioritize these types of things, right? You will find out in relationships with friends, associates, coworkers, family members, whatever, that in certain cases, when people frame things around money in a certain way and things don't add up, you just say to yourself, it's not that you don't see the value in this. No. It's not that you can't afford it. You just don't see the value in it because you are too busy judging it on something else. And so that is a real reality, that there are people out here who don't view or appreciate certain things based on, everything else that's going on. And so it's very interesting how people will prioritize something. So I remember when I was in high school. I remember this in high school. I was so irked with this person. I'm okay with them now, but I was really irked then. I wanted them to come to a party I was having, and I was like, "Oh, you're invited," yada yada yada. And it was like we were going to Chili's. This was like my 18th birthday. I had Chili's. My bestie Jamarcus remember them days because he was there for him. 12 years ago? Not even, was it 12? 11? 13 years ago? Wow, we've been doing birthday parties that long, Jamarcus. Anyway, this person, I said, look, Chili's is around $20 back then, y'all, okay? That's when you could do dinner and a movie. Now you can only do dinner or a movie because the prices are ridiculous. But anyway, I was like, yo, it's about $20. Come $20. They're like, oh, I got to see what my money looking like, blah, 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 blah. Well, child, invited them. They didn't go because they didn't have any money. Because they spent the money they did have on weed. Yes, you heard that correctly. So what you find out is that people just have certain priorities. For them, they would rather spend their money or their last on weed rather than going to a dinner party with friends. They're just maybe socially awkward or whatever the case might be. But you just realize that it's not that people can't do stuff, it's what they choose to. And I wish more adults would exercise their agency to confirm where they stand on things rather than just be telling people lies. At the end of the day, you can't serve your master, you can't serve the servant, you can't pick both sides all the time. Be real. Stop all this. Anyway, that irks me when I see people do stuff like that. But anyway, recently there was a group, this couple hadn't spoken to me, didn't really talk to me about my book, never really talked about my process. They were too busy trying to have the wedding of whatever century they were in. But they didn't really talk about my work or my project or anything. Now all of a sudden, because, I went to Hollywood and met some celebrities and there's some timingness and I'm relevant in a certain way. Now they want to be in the mix. They want to go to the book party. They want to go to the launch party. They want to be in the mix with everything I have going on. And I'm just kind of like, how convenient, Not that I'm going to be mean and say, fuck you, da 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 da. But it's more of a, how convenient. How convenient. That's very convenient that all of a sudden, just be looking at how people act. Just watch how people move. Be observant. Sometimes this is one of the moments where you just be like, duly noted, rather than making it a huge war. But that's that. So I want to get into the aftermath of the Grammys, speaking of which. There's been so much of come since it. There's me in the press behind all this Harry Styles crap, which is fortunately dying down. I've learned this with the cycle of crazy fans and people. Like when I dealt with the Justin Timberlake thing, which was, oh my goodness, it was like a week of the madness. But what you find, and even when I dealt with Sean King and his trolls and things, you find that there's a science to it. It's like the first 72 hours, 3 to 4 days, typically is when there's a lot of heat. And then the news cycle changes, attention on the issue evolves, people don't really give a fuck as much, and then the energy just dies down, and then there's a new thing to convert your attention to. And you study this pattern when you recognize, especially when you have encounters that can be high profile public with these types of crazy stan cultures, that there's a moment where the world cares, and so people magnify on that. And then there's a moment when everyone else has moved on, don't give a fuck. And so you kind of look stupid, still trying to go at it. And then you just have to let it go. And then there's another cycle, and then something else happens. And so that's how the news cycle works. That's how attention works. That's how trolls work. And it's a theory, and I think definitely want to talk more about that down the road in general. But as someone who's been in the industry and have seen certain things, I've recognized some patterns of behavior from certain people, and yeah. You just learn a lot. You learn a lot about the process. You learn a lot about people. You learn a lot about all this shit. So, in other news with this, following up on this, there's been this fight about Quavo and Offset fighting. You know, everyone's trying to figure out what happened. Honestly, if they fought or didn't really physically fight, whatever the case is, these two black men are dealing with some heavy grief. They've lost a family member. They've lost somebody that was on their band. I mean, they lost, the Migos will never be the same. And it's tragic and it's sad, you know. And, you know, they will never be the same. So they're grieving. And yes, there's some things that's been speculated. But what I will say about it is that, I don't know, I wish the media wouldn't get in that much. I mean, that's a very sensitive, hot topic, but also just something that's really personal. And as somebody who has known folks in my circle, relatives, whatever, who've passed away, when you're dealing with that, all kind of things come up, all kind of things get said. Everybody's saying whatever, people are mad. But that's not for public consumption. And I think sometimes people, the media specifically, because I'm not going to call some of these people journalists because they're absolutely not journalists, especially after this week. But there is something to be said for people demanding their privacy. And these people are being thrust into the spotlight a little bit too early, but money calls and everything else. That's the capitalism of it all. So that was one interesting thing. The other thing is, you know, Chris Brown has shown his ass again, not knowing who Robert Glasper is. You know, just out here talking reckless and mad because his album went R&B album of the year. I'm just like, Chris, you've only won one Grammy your entire life. You won Best R&B Album for Fame, which was definitely a return to form for Chris Brown. His last good album. The rest of them albums have been duds since are redundant and things. It's like, come on, Chris, be happy he was nominated. But like, come on, are we serious? Do you really thought you was gonna win against Robert Glasper? Come on. But it's true. But then I also want to talk about this in retrospect. So everybody's been talking about award shows. And, you know, do they matter? And why does Beyonce play herself and all this jazz? And it was interesting because I read this really great piece in the Hollywood Reporter by Gina Prince Bythewood, which is this is the woman who directed The Woman King, which was completely shut out of the Oscars. Not snubbed. Because snub means you was already nominated, you didn't get some nominations people thought you was going to get. This ain't about being snubbed. This film, which had a great a great score by the ratings, the critics, it was a box office global hit, over $100 million raised, made from the film. Did all this great work. And what's sad about it is that these black films by black female-led films were left out. Till, St. Omer, and it's unacceptable. So she says in this piece that the Academy, quote, the Academy, referring to the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, made a very loud statement, and for me to stay quiet is to accept that statement. Powerful. But one line that she said that stood out to me, and I wanted to read it because it makes me think about the Grammys. So I'm going to say this, what it is. Quote, though there are those who say to black filmmakers, why do you care about awards? Why do you care about validation from a white organization? And that's the thing. The Academy and the guilds should not be thought of as white institutions. They're supposed to be made up of our peers. They're not. They don't represent the whole filmmaking community. But what awards give you is currency. They impact your standing. They impact the box office. They impact the steps you take in this industry. They impact who gets final cut. Well said, Gina. Hit it on the nail. As somebody who has gone to award shows, clearly, who are a part of various groups, academies, and groups that are participating in this industry, she's right. She's right. Like, we can act like no one tells this to people who go to Ivy League schools. Like, why you went there? Because even though the validation of white people do not matter, what we have to acknowledge is that we concede to white power by consistently treating these things as white institutions by default, rather than looking at them as what they are and what they should be. But also what we have to recognize is, because again, we live in a capitalist society, that in many ways, these awards provide a level of prestige, opportunity, and access. We cannot underestimate what the Academy Award did for Halle Berry's career. We cannot underestimate what, the Oscar for Mahershala Ali did from those 2 Academy Awards in less than 5 years. We can't underestimate what Academy Award nominations and Oscars have done for Denzel Washington or Viola Davis, right? Her reaching EGOT, which is a big fucking deal. She got EGOT this year. I mean, finally. But like what that has done for their careers and what it does for films and in the box office and movie sales and ticket sales and all of that matters. I mean, we look at the Grammys recently, right? They said that, certain artists saw a rapid boost. That Best New Artist, Samira Joy, who won, right? Shocked everyone when she won Best New Artist at the Grammys. Black jazz musician. She saw a ginormous, over 1,000% increase in streaming on Spotify after she won that award. There's a new legion of fans who's going to start listening to her music and discovering it and falling in love with her. She's such a great artist. I listened to her music during Grammys weekend, and I'm like, wow, she's got talent. She's the second jazz musician after Esperanza Spalding to win that award. And that's a big damn deal. So, we can act all day and say these awards don't matter, but let's also reframe what they mean to the artist and the person rather than simply passively acting like it's about other things. Like Beyonce, even though she did not win Album of the Year, which she deserved, Beyonce won because to a certain extent, she is a major musical entity. She has power and influence. And she feels like if this is going to be a space, it's called the Recording Academy, if this is going to be the space that recognizes music or whatever the case is, don't she deserve to be in that room? Not necessarily to gravel at their feet and kiss their ass, but the fact of let the record show that the greatest musician of our time, I'm not musician, let me clarify, greatest performer, because Stevie Wonder is the greatest living musician of our time. Okay? We're not going to play Stevie Wonder. He is the greatest living musician of our time. She is the greatest living performer, entertainer of our time, specifically Beyonce. If that's the case, she should be in the room. The same reason why, 3-time Album of the Year winner Stevie Wonder was in the room, and Smokey, and all these other legends and icons. Like, there is something to be said for it. And a lot of it isn't necessarily individual. I think Beyonce sees the whole picture of what it means for her to be on that stage and be in that room, what it means to young Black women who aspire to be in the industry and what kind of history and goals they want to achieve. She's considering, I think, all of those things. I think a lot of Black artists consider those things. Not all of them, right? But if you make it personal and if you only fixate on it on the sense of they're playing in my face, and I had to think about this in a way, then you miss the larger impact of what it means for these artists' survival. And also navigating a white industry and space where, sadly, we as all Black people know that there are certain things that will stand out to get people the next gig, the next money boost, that final cut. It does play a role. You will see actors who get certain types of positions and opportunities, how they will turn around and get higher salaries because of the nomination, because of the win, because of this, that, because they can express numerical data and value in those ways. Yes, it's fucked up. Is there double standards? Of course there is. But at the end of the day, let's acknowledge and recognize the impact of what these things have on these Black creatives and these artists, because so often we just play it off like it doesn't make sense or it doesn't matter. It does matter. Does it mean the world? Does it mean you're not talented if you don't have it? Absolutely not. But I think that in reality, this is their respective industry. Academics, journalists, we all know that there are certain industries and spaces where we've seen this happen. And it creates, a lot of these problems that is, it's not a win-win situation for Black people. That's really what I'll say. It's not a win-win situation for black people. Let's say if you're a black artist who decides not to deal with the Recording Academy or the industry at large, then you have to work even harder to get your music out, to get promotion, to get support, to get other things, right? I'll give an example of one artist I think about, right? I think about specifically, Frank Ocean. Where is the new Frank Ocean music? We haven't seen any Frank Ocean music in God knows how long, right? And one would argue when he last was out doing his music, he hasn't submitted his stuff for Grammy consideration. He doesn't really play with the Grammys anymore, which is largely an extension of we haven't heard any new music from him. And none of that music is being up for consideration or nominated or getting any promo or buzz or spark. And so, he's taken a step from the industry in that way, but we haven't seen the rest of him. The Weeknd, for example, he purposely made the decision that he wasn't going to do anymore after he was personally snubbed, which is his prerogative and his right. But when you think about it in a larger scheme of things, there's been artists who've been snubbed far worse. And I get that he doesn't want to individually participate, but what does that mean for the exposure or the acclaim of his music? I mean, there is something to be said about some of that. And yes, there are black award shows. This is true. But when you're in the industry where you want that universal acclaim, it's not just appealing to whiteness, but it's also recognizing the realities of where support and funding comes from. If we're in a country where we see massive, disadvantages and resources given, if you don't have the total means like a Beyonce, you can either fund better institutions to make them better. I'm not talking about the Recording Academy, but if you're look at the NAACP Image Awards, if there's other things, if you can yield your influence to get them better sponsorships, get them better buzz and proximity, build this one up, then maybe down the road, those types of mainstream white awards may be a little bit more obsolete. But you got to start somewhere. And I think too often there's no collective community organizing around particular areas of the arts and culture and things that we want to see massive reform on. I can't sit on every committee. I can't sit on every report personally, but I do recognize the impact of it. And I think sometimes we sell this short. Just saying. Food for thought. Because as somebody in the journalism industry, as a journalist or whatever in media, look, y'all, I do submit for awards. I do want media consideration. I submit for NABJ, National Association of Black Journalists, but I also submit for other, competitions, SBJ, Society of Professional Journalists, many media groups and companies, and Pen and Pencil Club, people nominated me. It was a different vibe. But these are all of the things that I process and navigate as a creator. So, don't be so harsh on black talent. Recognize the other things they have to consider in their careers. Just like we all do, right? Whether you're in jobs, grad schools, whatever the case is, we all have to navigate various spaces to try to get validation. Do we hate it? Yes. But in reality, sometimes that's what you have to do to get to the next level. And some people just don't want to keep suffering. I get that, they don't want to keep, going through it. So I understand that as well. So as we begin to wrap up, this is random, but I was talking about movies. So I saw You People. I remember I told you about that. But it's come out that apparently there's CGI kissing in those scenes with Jonah Hill between Lauren London. There's she didn't really kiss him. It was a lot of fake kissing or something CGI and animated design of them kissing, which is weird. I just want to say this, and I just want to be frank. I really hate that, the essence is that she didn't want to kiss him because, she still loves, Nipsey Hussle, which was her ex-fiance, who passed away. She's a widow. She wasn't married to him, but they were getting ready to be married. But, that was her last love, her main love, in that way. It's just interesting that women, specifically black women, I've noticed this pattern that when they lose a famous man or they lose someone they love, to death or something, there's this expectation for society that the woman can't move on, that she has to forever be, quote unquote, loyal to someone who's no longer alive or no longer here with us, right? And it's such a double standard because when I think about Diddy, right? Diddy lost, Kim Porter, which was the mother of his children and different things. Nobody ever took a step back to say, well, if that was someone he really loved or he cared about, whatever, Why hasn't he taken the time to really process this grief? Why is he talking to Carisha and young ass girls and adult girls, young adult women, right, on his, Leo tip? Why is he doing all that, acting out that way? No one ever questions that he questions his love for Kim Porter, and all that. No one ever questions any of that. But it seems like Lauren London is supposed to forever be in this perpetual state of being a grieving ex-lover that, if heaven forbid she dates a new guy, even though she should and she's entitled to it. And essentially, I would imagine that Nipsey want her to live her best life and be happy. But she's put in this awkward position where everything she does, if she does a romantic film or anything, she has to basically, submit herself and declare her love and loyalty. It's just so sexist to me. And I just really think it's unfair to her. And I really hope that she can be in a space where she can set her own terms and be who she wants to be without having to deal with all the rah-rah. So that's my take on that. And wrapping up, so TV, I want to say that Abbott Elementary returns with a Valentine's Day episode. Cannot wait to watch that. It hasn't came out yet, but it's coming out this week. Everyone I've been hearing and talking about said this episode is just as iconic as the episode, The Hookah Holiday, where she went to that club and it was that club scene. They was all dancing and stuff. I heard this episode is definitely in the Hall of Fame of Abbott Elementary episodes. Yes, we're talking about it in that way because it is an incredible show. So I'm looking forward to that. I've been watching Baddies West on Zeus. Yes, my problematic TV journey continues. Let me tell you something. This is clean cut. The girls know who they are. They know what time it is. Everything that's happening is on par and on part. There's not that much dead weight so far on the show. Everything is action. This is a lot of action and violence. But it's a big deal. It's a lot of action going on, and I love it. I really love. I'm really enjoying this show. It's a great escape from all the busy work and everything else I have going on. So I enjoy some good old-fashioned reality TV. That being said, Love It Hip Hop, Family Reunion, it's corny. It felt corny. There were some moments I liked it, but it's just corny. I don't know what's going on with the brand. Now, Mona Scott Young, I met her in person. She went to the Clive Davis. She's worked with big artists like Missy Elliott, who, by the way, Missy Elliott tweeted me, y'all. We was tweeting back and forth. I shouted her out. She retweeted it. Then she got in the comments with some love. I was like, oh my God, I'm here. We should see each other. She said we should. With hearts like, why are you playing with me? Stop playing with me, Missy. But Missy Elliott is awesome. Totally awesome. Mr. Meter is just great. I just love this connection. And, I love my little celebrity connections. But anyway, but yeah, I just felt like this reunion series, I'm like, where's the drama? I feel like Zeus has sucked the life out of reality TV, good reality TV. They're not fighting as much anymore. The confrontations are not as much anymore. I still watch them because I do like some of the stars because I followed them throughout the years. So you kind of want to go to watch these pop up. I mean, I guess there was one epic fight scene throughout the season, but I just feel like Zeus just brings the energy and the heat. And they do have their flaws, and it's a little problematic in that program. But it's doing what it's supposed to do. Let me just say that. And then also lastly, this show called The Impact. It's corny. I thought it had potential to impact ATL, but it's a bunch of folks that are actually not from the ATL, aka Atlanta. They're not from Atlanta. And yet they're just positioning themselves. And I just felt like it was very vapid. It was a waste of time. I tried to follow the show, but it just seems to get just corny and corny and corny. It feels like a young black version of, do I want to name, it's just a corny show. I just feel like there's a bunch of influencers. They want to be something. They're really hype. But it's just, it feels like the Kardashians. It feels like I'm going to just say, it just feels like a very low budget type of Kardashians where everyone's debating and talking oh, I'm so mad at Jen. She invited me to the party. Why did Jen invite you to the party? Because she didn't want me to go to the party. Oh, okay. That's messed up that she didn't want you to go to the party because the party going to be fun. I know. I wish she invited me to the party, but I won't confront her about the party. Well, you should tell her about how you feel about the party. Okay, I will. Testimony. So I'm going to talk to her about the party because I think it's going to be really nice, but we'll see. And it's like a fake manufactured conflict. It's just so dry. It's just not really feeling it at all. But What I am feeling, you all, I am happy to tell you this. This is an exclusive sneak peek. It's only for Earnestly Speaking listeners. But February 26th at 5:30 p.m., I will be doing the Case for Cancel Culture, a Busboys and Poets presentation. I'll be at Busboys and Poets on Sunday, February 26th at 5:30. If you go on Busboys and Poets right now on their events section, you can be able to RSVP and get you a ticket. Now it says buy a ticket, but I want to be very clear. The ticket is free. So you just click on it. It's through it takes you to an Eventbrite, and you can basically submit an RSVP in advance. These are all my DC people. If you're in the DC area, DMV area, February 26th at 5:30. RSVP now. The location is listed. It's going down. Busboys and Poets, DC, where you at? I'm slowly dropping. This is going to be my second major public book signing event. So I'm slowly going to roll it out until we put the full roster up. But I wanted DC folks to already get ready now. Get ready, DC. Tell your friends. Spread the word. Go on busboysandpoets.com/events. Go to the event section. It will come up. It's in February. It's in a couple of weeks. We shit, like 2 weeks from now, y'all. It's that close. Like, we're that close to this epic book release. Cannot wait for you all to fully embrace it. I'm super excited, as I said before. And as always, be well and be best. Earnestly Speaking is recorded in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and can be found on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. To stay up to date with the latest on the show, follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Mr. Ernest Owens. Use the hashtag Earnestly Speaking to tell me what you thought about this episode, and check out my website at ernestowens.com.